What's a boring hobby that's not boring at all? Making detailed and realistic maps. I grew up poor, so to entertain myself I used to draw very realistic maps and play imaginary scenarios based on the map. Eventually my family got a computer and I started using Google SketchUp to make maps and flags. Now as an adult with a good paying job, I play EU4, HOI4 and CK2. But I still enjoy making maps whenever I have a pencil and a blank paper. Imagination has no limits. Edit. Wow. I didn't expect to get these many upvotes about maps. Many are asking to upload some of them on Reddit or if I have portfolio. I don't have a portfolio, since I always viewed them as so hobby and haven't thought about uploading them online. However, with the encouragement I have seen on here, I feel like I might start making maps more frequently and perhaps start sharing them on Reddit even with my limited time outside of work. Thank you to all the awards given. Never thought my most upvoted comment would be about my hobby of making maps. You should check out Wonderdraft. Finding cool rocks. No joke. You get to walk about, seeing cool things, breathing fresh air, and you get a geology bonus. Geology rocks. So I'll go do labs. Research, or at least in my opinion. If you're looking for information on a topic you genuinely enjoy, it's actually quite fun to learn a lot about it from different If nobody makes you do it, it counts as fun. Calvin and Hobbes. I don't know if it counts as a hobby, but I love just going for walks. I live in a small city, and I walk the same route often, with various extensions. On my days off, I spend the whole day by myself, walking around the whole town and watching, listening to music, and thinking. When I spend time with friends, I take them on walks with me. I walk in the woods, in the streets, I get lost, I walk to get to where I want to go, I'm always effing walking. I love it. It relaxes me and makes me feel purposeful at the same time. I seriously recommend it to everyone. Just take a freaking walk today. Watch the sunset. Watch the people around you. Look at the trees, look at the sky, look at the light moving across the buildings, listen to your footsteps or your breathing or a story. It's so good for you. There's a guy in a nearby city that is famous for walking. He's the walking guy that people have been seeing everywhere for years and years. Might I recommend an idea for your walks? Tracking where you've walked and mapping it all out, and making it a point to walk every street/trail/path in your small city. It could add a cool dimension to your walks. Oh. We have Walking Man as well. He is actually a really interesting to talk to when I'm out in the yard. All the Karens in town started posting on Nextdoor app about how suspicious he was just walking all the time. Geez. I'm guessing this is in the US? Car culture has really effed things, haha. What the hell is he doing walking blocks at a time for no 100%, this is my jam. I live in London, which is a pretty big city, but there's so many small towns with nooks and crannies you can discover. Pre-COVID I lived/worked in Richmond for 5 years and there were still hidden gems I stumbled upon every day. Then there's the parks, the fresh air, the birds, even on an overcast day there's a mood you can get in. I would say 100%, a hobby. I mean, you invest time and money into it, good shoes, weather-appropriate clothing etc., and you do receive rewards or benefits from it. Walking is deeply underrated in my opinion. Quilting and cross-stitch. A nice mug of coffee, a good audiobook, and I'm all set to spend the day making pretty stuff to look at. Crochet and cross-stitch for me. The audiobook and coffee are necessary for the complete benefit. My literal plans for the weekend are to make a quilt. That's it. That's the weekend. And I'm so excited. It's been too long. Woodworking with hand tools. I'm addicted, have bought 5 hand planes, and can't stop. I'm really into woodworking and I really love to use the few hand tools that I have, but I feel like I always end up having to use power tools for everything, so I was wondering, what do you make that you can do with only or mostly hand tools? From what I've seen, you can make just about anything if you have the time. I'm so on a journey to make a bunch of furniture for my house. Along the way, I'm making a bunch of small boxes as skill builders. Gardening. You'd be surprised. Nothing beats cooking with herbs you grew yourself. Built a greenhouse for my mom a year ago. Self-grown tomatoes, oregano, and chilies make a really damn good pizza sauce. Homegrown tomatoes really bring out the fact the store-bought ones are terrible. And I never even knew it. Just after comparing, it's night and day. I really thought I disliked tomatoes until I started growing them. Those things in the grocery store have nothing to do with real tomatoes. As someone who hates tomatoes and just started growing a couple of tomato plants, I find this very interesting. Maybe I'll actually like the tomatoes, assuming said plants survive. I have never grown tomatoes. I love stopping at the farm stand to get so fresh zucchinis and red onion, then come home, snip a fresh eggplant off our plants, pick so fresh tomatoes, and make ratatouille with fresh oregano from the in-laws' garden. I'm super excited this year. We bought our house almost 7 years ago and I've been on overnights ever since. Now that I'm finally on day shift, I'll be able to get out during daylight hours to start a garden. I'm picturing gardening in the middle of the night. So would 100% think you're burying a body? Those tomatoes look quite plump this year. Not going to lie, I've harvested tomatoes and picked off caterpillars at night with a headlamp. Pests and ripening wait for no person got to make hay even if the sun ain't shining. I'm embracing my role as the neighborhood eccentric plant lady with both arms. Anything with visible progress is exciting. I love gardening. Now is the time to plant flowers and I am so excited. Knitting, actually. If you can do it right, it's actually fun. Note that you'll probably rage quit if you get it wrong. I rage quit 3 times before it finally clicked. I was like, I will not be defeated by string and sticks. Children can do this. Now it's one of my favorite hobbies and I've made so beautiful pieces. Now I can fix my mistakes easily, but when I started, my grandma taught me and was the only one who could help me. I visit her about 4 times a year, so whenever I made a mistake it ruined at least the whole day and had to wait until I could see my grandma again. I was just going to comment this. I can't just sit and watch TV anymore without knitting, it's too boring. I can't be a passenger in a car without my knitting, it's way too boring. Back when one could go to the cinema, I'd even take my knitting there with me, and a handkerchief to make sure I don't get popcorn grease on my nice yarn. I used to knit, but fixing mistakes was so frustrating with complex patterns that I switched to crochet, which is more forgiving. Knitting is so to me. Plus it's mindless enough that I can do it while watching a movie. It's great. I do counted cross stitch. I'm not creative at all, but give me a coded pattern that creates a map. I always do maps, but you can make way more intricate things than you think if you invest the time, and I'm all over that crap. It's how I quit smoking. It keeps my brain engaged. I know who doesn't stitch thinks it is easy, but patterns are a challenge and I enjoy that. I did a large, detailed cross stitch that included what felt like every shade of green in existence. It really challenged my sanity. I for one would love to see your Shrek cross stitch. LOL. I think it's prettier than Shrek, but that made me laugh. Here you go. Edit, all of these sweet compliments are so making my day. Web link. Love the way it seems 3D with the shadows and emphasized edges. Great work. Oh, that's seriously so. Love it so much. My husband does cross stitch as well. He says that he approaches it mathematically and it just makes sense, whereas I look at it and my eyes swim. Congrats on quitting smoking, by the way. I don't do cross stitch, but it seems like basically in real life pixel art to me, and even when you're most creative minded there's a mathematical logic to pixel art I really like. Pretty much true. My wife has a program that takes a picture you import and it makes it into a pattern with the colors already set for the thread. I figured out long ago that it came out better if your sew was the same pixel width and height as the pattern output you wanted, i.e., 5 by 824 count would be 120 pixels by 192. It so lets you decide if the picture will even make a good cross stitch a lot easier. So like Paint.net or GIMP does a better job of that resizing and color translation than any cross-stitch import program does, so she now uses one of those to resize it to the perfect size prior to importing. And you can even compress the color depth so it doesn't come out with 500 colors in the pattern. Can you tell what the program is? My wife has really gotten into it and we want to make so of our own patterns, but neither of us feels very artistic. So starting with so actual pictures would help. http://www.stitch.com/ been using it for years. Does DMC and a couple of other thread types. One of the best things in the import is the ability to reduce the number of colors easily. You can select a color and make it into another, thereby combining them. So, when it comes up with 25 colors of green that are all similar, you can easily make them all one thread. Just remember, if you take so huge 1080p picture and try to force it down to 18 count 8x10 size, you are going to get a mess. Web link. I came here to write about cross-stitch and embroidery. It's so meditative. Plus at the end, you have so that you created to show for it and it feels incredibly satisfying. Editing videos. A lot of my friends say it looks boring, but it's actually so and calming after a stressful day. What is your method? Like, do you have your editing process mapped out? No, I actually enjoy editing videos for my family, and so for my YouTube channel, usually video games, haha. I do this for a living. Telling stories for a living is actually a privilege, and I keep reminding myself how lucky I am to have this career. How did you get into it? Any tips for beginners who want to start doing this? Just start editing and work on your craft. I wish I had better advice, but I got into this business years ago by getting a job at a video production company doing overnight dubbing. I taught myself the sew and eventually my company threw a client at me. Rest is history. Getting in the business now can be challenging because everybody has a computer and so. But the better storyteller you become, you will get noticed. Geocaching. Started this when my then girlfriend and I were dirt poor in college, and now we have logged about 1,700 caches in about a dozen different countries. Even just doing it near our home is so, because you get to see things you'd never see otherwise. Highly recommend. Doing it on vacation or when you are in a new place is even better. When geocaching was first described to me, I thought it so like the dumbest thing ever. So hide so, then post the GPS coordinates to find it. You use a GPS to go to the exact spot and find the cache. Easy, right? Lame, right? Go do it. You'll likely have fun. If you have kids, call it treasure hunting. Bring stuff to trade. Bring a pen. Is there a website or app for this? How do you know it's safe to do, especially if you plan to bring kids? http://geocaching.com. Basically, it was created for families to do, especially with kids. Check the terrain and difficulty rating for the cache before you try it with kids. Some of them are very difficult. But most are easy and the kids love it. I remember once in /r/trees, so was like, hey guys. Let's geocache. With pot stuff. We can post directions and stuff. And everyone was like, are you out of your effing mind? So you want to leave illegal substances in public. And post where they are. In a public forum. That is likely frequented by law enforcement. Reddit link. I didn't know what r/trees was at first, so I was confused as to why so was posting about weed in a tree subreddit. Reddit link. The subreddit you're looking for is r/marijuana enthusiasts. Reddit link. I just looked up geocaching after reading this comment, as I've never understood what it was. I think I'm going to try it. This looks so fun. You use multi-million-dollar satellites to locate Tupperware in the woods. Birding. People love hiking and going outdoors, but as you add in birds, suddenly it's seen as boring. Birds are so diverse and you'll never know everything there is to know. Birding is real-life Pokémon Go. Got to list them all. This is how I treat going to the beach at low tide. So many things to find: anemones, urchins, sea stars, nudibranchs, snails, all kinds of eggs, etc. I still haven't seen an octopus, though. One day. I started casual birding last year because I hike and photography, so it gives me so to shoot for. I feel like as I started pointing out the local birds that aren't crows and starlings, my Facebook friends started to enjoy birding pictures of the colorful seldom seen birds. I got at least one other so looking at birds now. My mom has an acquaintance that does bird photography, and it's half of what my mom updates me on. My mom doesn't even do birding as a hobby, but is so into the good photos. My 12-year-old so is super into birding. We've bought him so many books recently, and we're planning a trip out to Vancouver Island in July just so he can see so new birds. My 2-year-old is super into birds right now. For his birthday, we got him a bird feeder and a bird bath so he can watch them up close. He is a very high-energy kid. But when he sees a bird, he stops everything and watches it. He will sit so quietly with me in the morning on the deck and watch the birds at the feeder. My parents and grandparents are big birders, but I never got into it. I hope that he continues to enjoy it growing up. But when he sees a bird, he stops everything and watches it. I'm in my 30s and do this with the birds at my feeder. Smiley face, you start to learn things about observing them too. Like, I always know when cardinals are at the feeder, because of their distinct chirp. Crossword puzzles. Like, actually buying the books of nothing but crossword puzzles and working up to the New York Times Sunday puzzle. I bought the book of 200 NY Times Sunday crossword puzzles at the start of the pandemic, and I'm more than halfway through it. Figuring out the puzzle's theme halfway through is so satisfying. Edit. I'm so happy talking to people whom so love crosswords. My late grandma was the one who got me into them when I was 12, a whopping 20 years ago. No one else in my family does them, and they all think I'm a massive nerd. I am, and proud of it. The Sunday is about a Wednesday/Thursday difficulty level. Fridays and Saturdays are usually harder. People think Sunday is harder, but it's really just big. I've been doing Need Sundays every week since the late 2000s. Model railroading and or train simulation. My husband even has his own room for his model trains. I love it that he transitioned from buying models to building his own, especially things that there are no models for. He builds houses and such. The technical side with programming is fascinating. Without his hobby, I would have had such boring holidays. Instead, we went to see everything that he has in and took fantastic trips with night trains and such. I want a train room. I appreciate not having his hobby things around in the remaining flat, so it's a win-win. And he can close the door if he's playing with sound. Yes, they get quite loud. And let's be honest, it's the dream of all model train enthusiasts to have their own round course. And yes, I have to duck if I want to enter the room. Rock collecting. People thinking it's dull until you realize I walked through the woods and waited by riverbanks to get so of mine. That's more adventure than most see these days. They're minerals, Marie. Collecting coins. There are so many weird ways of doing this hobby. It can bring you to the deep recesses of eBay, a garage sale, or flea market in the middle of nowhere, your grandmother's attic, or a random field with a metal detector. And there are so many variations on how. You can collect memorabilia coins, state quarters, pre-war coins, silver coins, gold coins, or coins from a specific year or whatever qualifier you can think of. I've been collecting since 2006. I have so many now. I plan on hitting the beach this year, and I finally bought my first metal detector. I'm stoked. My friends and family scoffed at the idea when I told them. They told me I won't get rich doing it, but that's not why I do it. It's the adventure of it. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to be the first to know about Red Rabbit Reader's new videos. If you like our videos, please like them on YouTube and share them with your friends. We welcome your comments below. Press to start another of our videos.